Chapter 5. The Third, Sixth Man. Fran Blochamp, brilliant, radiant, and effervescent, stood waiting in the center of the lobby. I walked in, tired, nervous, and jet-lagged. I was honestly unsure whether to hug her, kiss her, so instead I greeted her with the international sign of love, an overhead double high-five. She looked just as beautiful as the last day I saw her, save a minor wrinkle here or there. She still had that beautiful signature look, petite frame, dark olive skin, frizzy red hair, eyes black as coal. We were now embracing in the center of the lobby. I was brought back to that Holiday Inn Super Savers suite, even though we were now in a Howard Johnson's, a sure sign we'd both moved up in the world. We didn't talk at first, we just held each other. It was hard to tell how much time had passed, maybe 25, perhaps 26 seconds. I was lost in the past. I just wanted to stay in this moment for as long as I could, my senses reliving those days 13 years ago. I swear I could still smell the lube. Fran finally pulled back. She had on a blue miniskirt, an orange mesh tank, fuzzy purple leg warmers, and white stilettos, a far cry from the conservative V-neck sweaters she donned during her career as a TV chef. "Listen closely because your life depends on it," I said, smiling. "You remembered?" Of course I did. The line was Fran's signature sign-on for every show. "You must be exhausted." "I'm okay. The transfer in Pyongyang could have been a little swifter. But the Cultural Achievements exhibition in the airport was quite nice. Did you know North Korea invented the internet?" "Huh, I never would have guessed it. Anyway, I got us a room together, but with separate beds." I said nothing. "Come on, let's get something to eat. And I hope this fog clears." Our Howard Johnson's was located on Zhongshan Road, a main thoroughfare in a central location. As we walked out of the revolving door, I noticed a van parked across the street. It was hard to tell through the thick fog, but the white windowless van appeared to have a group of men in suits and sunglasses piling into the back of it. My experience told me this was a possible red flag. It was 10 in the morning, but because of the time difference for me, it was actually 12:30, 4 days from now. While the hustle and bustle of Columbus is in full swing at this time, the Wuhanites were still rousing themselves from their slumber, typical of a party town. A pair of pretty 20-somethings, still decked out in cocktail dresses from the night before, squatted together near the roadside, pooping out the mistakes from the past evening. Businessmen lined up for their street-side breakfasts: egg rolls, fortune cookies, and sushi. As with any tourist town, we passed several chintzy shops selling piping and insulation. A shopkeeper, overalls covered in grease and sweat, stood on the sidewalk, aggressively trying to push us for a sale. "你们小心，我们要卸货." "Sorry, buddy," I said to myself, "but you're not dealing with a couple of rubes here." The longer we walked, the better I felt. The heat wasn't bothering me either. Surprising considering it said 38 degrees Celsius outside the bank, which I think is like 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Perhaps watching Fran walk was what did it. She had that confident stride I find so sexy in a woman. Lots of guys focus on things like breasts and ass and legs, but I've always found a walk as a great physical indicator of a woman's spirit and personality. When I watched Fran move, head held high, neck hyperextended, legs jerking forward, arms rigid at her sides, something stirred inside me. We stopped for a quick coffee at a quaint little Starbucks on the 7th floor of an electronics department store. The fog still hadn't passed, so we grabbed a pair of indoor seats. Fran reached across the table and grabbed my hands. "I've missed you," she said. "I know. So what have you been doing with yourself all these years?" "Oh, not much. I quit basketball a few years after we last met. Carter and I started our private investigation firm after I graduated law school. Been doing that ever since." "Sounds exciting." "Yeah, it can be. A gang of child sex traffickers kidnapped my daughter and her classmate on their high school band trip to Germany, but I went and hunted them down, so she's fine now. Oh yeah, Carter and I also took down a cartel in Mexico last spring. And what about you? You've been out of the public eye for almost 7 years now." "I know how long it's been. I looked for you many times. You said that before." "Apparently you're harder to find than a group of underground child sex traffickers." Fran let go of my hand. She looked to a nearby table. There was a couple arguing in Chinese. At the counter, an old man said something to the barista in Chinese. There was an announcement over the PA in Chinese. "So, where have you been, Fran?" She didn't answer. She looked down, her fingers tapping on the table. She picked up her cup and took her first sip. Then she quickly spit it out, spraying it out all over me and the couple next to us. "I'm sorry," she said to me. "This is my first time drinking coffee. I never knew it was so terrible." "Then why did you take me to a Starbucks?" "I guess I wanted to maintain the preconception I thought you had of me. This sophisticated, elegant lady who drinks coffee and has a cell phone." I quickly realized why she had decided to bring me to an electronics market. "I guess I just didn't want to disappoint you." "You could never disappoint me." "Really?" "Not unless you secretly run a child sex trafficking ring." We both shared a laugh. Seeing as how she knew about Jennifer, I assumed she'd known about the incident in Germany with my daughter. Luckily, my lightening of the mood seemed to put her at ease. She stopped wiping the sweat off her forehead and continued. "The reason I wanted you to come, it's quite serious. You can tell me anything. It's about my husband." I hadn't known she'd been married. Well, I should say ex-husband. We have been divorced for 6 years. This would have been right around the time she left her job at the Food Network. Well, my husband, let's just call him Johann, because that's his name. Johann was the one who brought me to Wuhan. In fact, I've only been here 2 weeks. What's so strange about that? I haven't spoken to Johann in almost 6 years. Anyway, he told me to stay in the room I've booked for us at the Howard Johnsons. I still don't see what's so surprising. You didn't hear his voice. He sounded terrified in a way I've never heard before. Johann was a car safety expert, okay? He never lost his cool all his years in the service, and he'd seen it all. Steering wheels impaling faces, owner's manuals impaling butts, butts impaling faces. I know it's a tough job. My uncle was a CSE. Anyway, he told me to drop everything and come. And you didn't ask why? Of course I asked why. He said he couldn't talk about it over the phone. If you weren't in Wuhan, where were you? I was in Wuxi. It's a large city near... I know where Wuxi is. I'm not retarded. The barista was now standing over our table. She wiped off all the coffee Fran had spit up. "你再吐一遍，我就报警." I used the brief pause in our conversation to look at her eyes. They were quite lovely. It was also nice to see them clearly for a change. Our last time together, they were either clenched tightly in ecstasy or bloodshot in anguish. So where is he now? I don't know. He hasn't contacted me in 2 weeks. You don't have his phone number? He never gave me one. So you want me to find him? I hear you're the best. You don't even know if he's missing. Something must have happened. He had to have been in danger. Even if he's missing, I don't know how I can help. I barely know the language or the culture, and I don't even know what your husband looks like. She reached into her purse and handed me a photo. Well, that's a start, I said. I scanned the photo. I saw Johann. He was middle-aged, bookish, and pale. He had a handlebar mustache and a skullet, and was pictured shirtless, with several oozing sores on his chest and abdomen. I continued my questioning. Did Johann live in Wuhan, or was he here on business? I don't know. Did he ever remarry? Does he have other kids? I don't know. This may be a long shot, but did he have any enemies in the car safety business? Somebody that swore revenge on him and his loved ones? That I do know. Many years back, shortly before we split, an American automaker tried to sue Johann. Johann was investigating the company's claims that airbags make you totally gay. A few years later, after Johann was able to program his crash test dummies to feel pain and to love, he proved that airbags only have a 2.3% chance of making you gay. Do you remember the company? Sure. It was the National Motor Company. CEO was a man named Richard Robichaud. Do you think he could have something to do with this? It's hard to say. We're in a strange place in a strange land. I looked out the window, then into the atrium, admiring the dichotomy between the modernity of the TV stores inside and the antiquity of the newsstands on the street below. Yes, China was indeed a land of mystery. And if you had to guess what he wanted to say to you, what would it be? I really don't know. There was now a long line of people ordering coffee in Chinese. Business was starting to pick up as well outside. Large crowds of people had gathered together by the side of the road. Some sort of elongated vehicle would stop next to the crowd, and then a large number of people would pile on, and the vehicle would drive off. Well, we can start with your ex-husband's work contacts. If not the recent ones, then we can start with the ones from when you two were still married. Okay. Fran and I left the Starbucks and the electronics market. We both picked up a couple of phones on our way out, so we'd have something to stay in contact with. Knowing about her Luddite predisposition, I showed Fran how to use the phone, telling her where the numbers were and which end to talk into. We walked back to the hotel through a city park. Old people were practicing Tai Chi in the square. Further down, an old man was doing calligraphy, using water and a large brush attached to a cane. His message read, 能看懂这句话就说你不是傻瓜. Though the fog hadn't cleared, it was still a pleasant 40-degree day. Some men were swimming in a large pond at the center of the park. A few young boys harvested dates from the trees up ahead. I held Fran's hand. My heart raced. Nervous and eager to maintain the pleasant atmosphere, I cleared a path for her as she walked, stomping on several colonies of ants in front of her. "Oh, that's so thoughtful," she said. As I looked past her intoxicating smile, I noticed something strange. It was difficult to be sure through all this fog, but parked along the road enclosing the park was a white van, the one I'd noticed across from the hotel. I looked back at Fran. "What is it?" "I think that van's following us." "Which one?" "The white one along the main road." "Are you sure?" "Only one way to find out." I grabbed Fran's arm and we walked quickly towards the north end of the park. The van followed in pursuit. We started running. The van sped up. We stopped and ran back towards the south end. The van pulled in reverse. We jumped up and down, incidentally decimating several more ant colonies. The van bounced a bit. Moments later, 6 or 7 men poured out of the back door holding their heads in pain. "Wait here, I'll handle this." I thought about it. Pieces started falling into place. Fran's ex-husband was the driver of the van, and these men were employees testing van safety. Johann was using the opportunity to spy on his ex-wife. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, as the ancient Chinese proverb goes. But I soon found out how wrong I was. I knocked on the driver's side door. The window rolled down, and there he was, Michael Schofield from the airport. He didn't try to hide himself. He smiled, opened the door, and stepped out. An older cop from the passenger side also got out. The rest of the underlings were now crouching on the curbside, already engaged in a game of poker. I felt stupid. I should have known Michael wasn't a visa officer. That's why his badge said, 我是警察. Michael and the older officer reached into their pockets and each pulled out a revolver. At first, I was worried they'd shoot, but instead they both unloaded their weapons, dumping the bullets in a roadside bullet recycling dispenser. Fran had now come over and joined me. Given our perilous situation, she instinctively hid behind me, wrapping her arms around my chest. "Will you come with us, please?" Michael said. "Can I ask what this is about?" I asked. "Once we get to the station, I'll explain everything." "Are we being detained?" "No." "Then we're not going anywhere until you tell us why you're following us." "Do you think you're still in America, Mr. Anderkin?" "No, but I'm pretty sure this is still a modern democracy with certain inalienable rights." The older detective looked over at Michael. He seemed annoyed. 能不能加快？我还得去小三家，把他本月的房租给他。 Michael stopped smiling. He reached into his other pocket. At first, I couldn't quite make out what it was. Michael then hurled the contents at my feet. Fran shrieked. Even I took a step back. Looking closer, I discovered my first impression wasn't wrong. On the street in front of me now, sealed inside a plastic bag, was a pair of human eyes.